Now,
All right, guys, welcome back. So, for the final segment, I thought it'd be fun to do a little over under. Um, Looking on BusinessInsider.com, who has some of the 2015 Major League Baseball over under win totals. So, thought I'd close the show up by trying to get through as many as possible. We'll start with the top, which is the Washington Nationals, actually tied with the Dodgers for 92.5. Starting with the Nationals, I'm going to go over. I think the Nationals really, this is going to be their season. I picked them to be my National League World Series team. They're going to win the pennant. I think their pitching staff is fantastic, especially if they keep all their starters intact and healthy. Obviously, signing Scherzer was a big deal. Basically, they have three number one starters on that team: Zimmerman, Strasburg, and Scherzer, to go along with Fister, to go along with Gio Gonzalez, Tanner Rourke. They have a lot of pitching on that team and some good offense too. Now they did lose Adam LaRoche in the offseason to Chicago, but they did move Ryan Zimmerman from the hot corner over to first base. So you have Zimmerman now, who should stay relatively more healthy at first base, a little less toll on his body. Also had a little trouble with throwing across the diamond. You move Anthony Rendon over to third, and they have Yunel Escobar, who they acquired this offseason from Oakland, at second base, along with Ian Desmond. That's probably one of the best, infields in the game offensively. And then you have, Denard Spahn, you have Jason Worth, and this year, your MVP, Bryce Harper. I've been saying it. I've been saying it for the last couple of years. I think Harper's finally going to break out this season. I really do. Harper is due for a huge, huge year. I think this is the year that he has, the 40-plus home run, 120-plus RBI, still steals you about 30 bags. I think he's going to have one of those tremendous seasons. And if he does, he's going to steer this team to the championship. So 92.5, I'm going over with the Nationals. Dodgers, 92.5. I'm going over with them as well. I like the Dodgers. I know they've lost, some of their offensive punch with Hanley Ramirez. Matt Kemp got traded, but they have a lot of good talent coming up in the minor leagues. They have this young Corey Seager kid who's a shortstop prodigy. Jock Peterson in the outfield. They still have some decent outfielders there with Andre Ethier. Carl Crawford's obviously still signed on. And then you also have, Yasiel Puig, who is still blossoming into a superstar, who's on the cover of this year's MLB The Show. If he's as long as he can keep his antics down, I think he's gonna have a great year. But the Dodgers, to me, they still have good pitching. You still have the best pitcher in baseball in Kershaw. You have Zach Greinke. You have Ryu. They have some good overall depth. And you know what? Adding veteran leadership like a Jimmy Rollins to shortstop and Howie Kendrick at second is not only going to shore up their defense up the middle, but also give them some veteran presence in that dugout to help Don Mattingly be able to get all these stars and egos in check. You still have Adrian Gonzalez at first base. They have some good players in this team, so I definitely am buying the 92.5 over. I would go over with that. The Cardinals are 88.5. Ah, man, I'm gonna say under. I think they're just under. They also acquired Jason Hayward, which I think was a big move for them. But it did sacrifice Shelby Miller. I think a lot of it relies on the health of Adam Wainwright, the health of Michael Wacha. They still have a very good pitching staff, Lance Lynn, but I think that the Cardinals will be in it, but I think they're going to be around maybe 86, 87 wins in the NL Central, which has become a tougher division now that the Pirates are more of a tougher contender in that division as well. And I think Cincinnati is going to be better this year too. So I say the Cardinals probably have about 87, just under. The Los Angeles Angels are at 88.5. I'm saying under there too. Josh Hamilton's injury doesn't help, obviously. The age factor on that team doesn't help. Pitching staff-wise, they still have Jared Weaver. You still have C.J. Wilson. To me, this team is still lacking. I think they really could have used another big pitcher in that rotation. Offensively, they lost Howie Kendrick. Pujols had a decent year for his age and for his health concerns. So, hopefully, he'll continue with that. And if he can get 25, 30 home runs out of Pujols, that'll be nice. But the thing with Hamilton is just, it's sad to see because, you like having those reclamation projects and guys getting second chances. And he looked like he was, on his way to becoming a budding superstar like we all expected to when he got drafted in 99 as the first overall pick. But injuries have plagued him since he's arrived in Los Angeles. It seems like he should have stayed in Texas. He had so much better years there. But I'm going to go under on the Angels as well at 88.5. I think it's just a little too high. The Mariners are a very interesting case. 86.5. I like the Mariners a lot this year. I think they're going to be over. That AL West is going to be a good division with Oakland, with Seattle, obviously with the Angels. I really like Seattle's team. I think that obviously bolstering their lineup, adding Nelson Cruz to go along with Robbie Cano. Kyle Seager's a budding, superstar at third. They got some good players in that team. They got some good young pitching too. Obviously led by one of the best pitchers in baseball, probably the second or third best pitcher, depending on who you talk to in the game, and Felix Hernandez, along with Tyjon Walker, James Paxton, Iwakuma. So they have some good players in that team. I really like their team a lot. I think they made big strides last year. I see them going over 86.5. I say about probably 80. I would say about 88 wins this year. I could even see them win the division, to be honest with you. I think they're going to be a playoff team at least, but I can see them winning the division for sure. I think that division is definitely up for grabs this year. The next team is the Boston Red Sox, 85.5. That's where it's tough. You see, I would go over if they had one more really, really good starting pitcher, and I think that pitcher is Cole Hamels. I think they still have a shot to get Cole Hamels. They didn't have to part with some good prospects. Obviously, they had a good catching prospect in Blake Sweetheart, excuse me, and they have a couple other players in the minor leagues that Philly would want. The problem is that Boston doesn't want to give up on those guys. But to me, always with prospects, and when you're dealing with prospects and you're dealing with a all-star caliber player, especially a starting pitcher, I go towards the starting pitcher. Hamels is still young enough. He's 30 years old. He still has a not so terrible contract in terms of the other players that have signed larger contracts in the past. He stayed relatively healthy his whole career. Having him join Clay Buchholz, Justin Masterston, Rick Porcello, Wade Miley would give them a very, very good starting five. Obviously, their offense looks repowered with Hanley Ramirez and Pablo Sandoval added to the mix to go along with David Ortiz and Dustin Pedroia. The outfield is a little bit of a logjam right now. They got a lot of outfielders, so they might be able to move one and swing one for a pitcher as well. But I'm going to go over with the Red Sox. I would be more emphatic if they had that one more big starting pitcher. But 85.5, I think they're going to win the division. That would be my pick for the AL East. So I'm going to go over 85.5 for the Boston Red Sox. The Giants at 84.5. It seems like people always bet against these, against the Giants and say, well, this is not going to be their year. And every time they do that, the Giants end up winning. They've won 3 World Series in the last 5 years. So, just on that alone, I have to go over. I can't doubt this team. They have great starting pitching depth. The one thing that would concern me is the amount of workload and the amount of innings that Madison Bumgarner pitched last season, because obviously he pitched way deep into the playoffs and World Series, came in even pitching relief. Obviously won the World Series MVP. That would be the only thing that scares me a little bit. If they monitor his innings a little bit and be careful with him, and as long as he stays healthy, I still see them going over the 84.5, even with the loss of Sandoval, because Bruce Bochy is a great player manager. They got a great, terrific staff on that team. Enough hitting to get by. And keep in mind that Angel Pagan, who's also a leadoff catalyst on the team, is out for most of the season with them. So you get him back healthy. You have a healthy Hunter Pence, who basically plays every single game of every year. Buster Posey, obviously, Brandon Crawford at short. They have a good team, so I'm going to go over on the San Francisco Giants. The Padres, look at the Padres moving up. The Padres are at 84.5 as well. Man, that's a tough one. It all depends on if these guys really, really mesh together well. I want to see if Matt Kemp can stay healthy a whole year. We don't really know if Will Myers is really suited for center field. He's going to have to be, because Upton and Kemp really aren't center fielders anymore. So Myers is the youngest of them all, and he's going to have to, patrol center field out there in San Diego. Is Will Myers going to be more of the rookie of the year that we saw 2 seasons ago, the guy that was the number 1 prospect in all of baseball? Last year he was hurt, so we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. So he's still young enough that he still has a lot to prove still, but talent-wise, I think he still has the chance to blossom into a really talented ball player. If that goes well, great rotation as well. James Shields, Tyson Ross, Andrew Kashner. They might get Josh Johnson back at some point, but we always keep saying that every year with this guy, and he always gets hurt. But I like their team. I'm going to go over with them too. I think the Padres have a very good, formidable team, and definitely one that's going to contend in the NL West. The Tigers come in at 84.5. Man, I'm going to go over with that too. I'm going a lot of overs, but I like the Tigers still, because they still have that nucleus of Miguel Cabrera. They added Yoenis Cespedes. J.D. Martinez came on last year and had a tremendous year for them in the outfield. So Ian Kinsler. So they have a lot of good offensive talent. It really relies on their pitching. And also Joe Nathan. If Joe Nathan's going to be, back to being Joe Nathan of a couple years ago, or if he's going to be that, high ERA, kind of walking on a tightrope closer, that scares me a little bit. But if Justin Verlander can come back, see, the thing with Justin Verlander is he too has lost a lot of velocity, but I think he has more of secondary pitches where he can really be more of that finesse pitcher like I talked about before, alluding to CC Sabathia, where he can be more in the mold of a Mussina or a Pedro, where he can rely more on his slider curve change, more so than possibly a Sabathia, who does have a good slider, but I think Verlander definitely has that ability more. So I have more faith in Verlander than I do Sabathia at this point in his career. So I'm going to go over with the Tigers. The Pirates come in at 83.5. Again, it's a tough division. Pirates, I think that's a push. I think they're probably going to be at about 83, 84. They're going to contend, but I'm just not convinced totally. They did lose Russell Martin, who was a big catalyst with that team. Obviously, he was kind of like a co-captain. Pedro Alvarez basically did nothing for them last year. Obviously, you have, an MVP candidate in Andrew McCutchen. They have a good outfield nucleus also. Marte is, blossoming into a stud. They re-signed Liriano, Garrett Cole. So you have a lot of good young pieces. If they all are capable of what they're supposed to play and how they're supposed to play and the projections for a lot of these young guys, then I think that they can win more games. But right now, I'm going to say that's a push. I think they're going to be at about 83, 84 going forward. The Indians have moved up a lot, and I'm very high on the Indians. I think the Indians did some nice moves this season. 83.5 as well. I'm going to say over with the Indians. I really like them a lot. Along being under the tutelage of Kerry Francona, who's one of the best managers in the game. Corey Kluber came on, obviously won the Cy Young Award last year. I like the young players they have. Michael Brantley came on to become a blossoming star. I think Nick Swisher is definitely due for a big year, along with Michael Bourne. Jason Kipnis is a good second baseman. I like their team. They have some good young players coming up, too. They have Francisco Lindor, who is a top prospect at shortstop. They still have Carlos Santana, Yan Gomes, who came on really big last year for them. So I like this team. I think that they have a really good nucleus of young and veteran talent. So I could see them going over. I really think the Indians are going to surprise a lot of people and have a good season. The Blue Jays at 82.5. If all breaks well and Jose Bautista and Encarnacion stay healthy, I like them to go over. I really do. I think that the Toronto Blue Jays and the Red Sox are going to be the two teams that are going to be going head-to-head this season in the AL East. The Blue Jays have a good nucleus, obviously, of offensive talent. It's the pitching staff that really has to take that next leap forward. They have Stroman, Drabek, Hutchinson. They have a good couple of nice young players coming up and some more coming up as well in the minors. I think they could have used one more big-time, pitching. I think if they had signed James Shields, that 4-year deal, that really would have put them over the top. I think they would have probably been more ranked in the 86, 87 win range. But as currently constituted, 82.5, I'll take the chance with Toronto Blue Jays. And have time for one last team, the Chicago Cubs, which has been a team that many have talked about this offseason and made a lot of moves as well at 82.5. I'm going to say under. I think they're probably going to be around 78, 79 wins, but this is going to be a big stepping stone year for them because a lot of their prospects are coming up. Chris Bryant, obviously, who was amazing last year, 44 home runs in AA and AAA combined, 120-plus RBIs. It's going to make them very hard. If he has a big spring training, I don't know how you don't have him in the big club coming this 2015 season. They added John Lester. They still have some good bats installing Castro and Anthony Rizzo. You have Jorge Soler coming up. You have Alberto Amora. Added Addison Russell destroyed as well. So they have a lot of good players coming up. I think they could use one or two more pitchers, but under the tutelage of Joe Madden, who they signed, I think the Cubs are going to be very exciting for a couple years going forward. Well, guys, we're at the end of the show. I appreciate you guys listening. Tune in next week, next Thursday, 12 to 1 for the Antonio and Matt Sports Hour. Antonio, wish you all the best. Hope to see you next week, bud. And I am Matt Brownstein, and have a great week, Iona.